David asked me to speak on the Accouterment program here at the Gunmakers Fair at Kempton. What we have here is artisans, whether beginners or experts, enter their items, their horns, their bags, their what else? Knives, tomahawks, get entered in to be critiqued by our panel of experts up here who are masters at their work. What do I want to say? We're not judging against each other. Each item is judged on its own merit. Judging is probably the wrong word. They're critiqued, and you get a critique sheet back. You did this really well. Maybe you could do that better. Maybe if you stitched your bag this way or that way. The whole purpose is to bring the art forward, bring you to the point where one of these days you'll be up there as the expert critiquing someone else's work. So that's what we're doing here today. Thank you.
This is the inaugural season, 2022, of the new Gunmakers Fair at Kempton, in Kempton, Pennsylvania. Up until about the past almost 40 years, we've been at the Dixon's Gunmakers Fair in Kempton, and the family decided that they wanted to cease having the show. So after about almost a 3-year hiatus, we decided to rejuvenate it with the firearms, the guns, and the accoutrements. So here we are, and so basically our score sheet has changed a little bit. Back in the old days, used to have a lot of stuff was correct or incorrect or didn't fit the gun and stuff like that. We wanted to be a little bit more hands-on and more writing, so we kind of copied a little bit of what the accoutrement side did, which was a critique sheet that would be more personal when written. So we left a bunch of spaces. So when you come to the Gunmakers Fair and enter a firearm, we want you to try to be in that time period. So we have an apprentice, journeyman, and master category. And in all those three of those categories, you get a critique sheet like this. And some of the questions we ask are about your barrel. We look and see how your barrel's finished, make sure there's no foul marks, they were finished and completely done correctly. And then it gives us an area where you can either do excellent work, good work, fair work, or needs improvement, which is 0. So we try to reward you with better points for better work. It also gives us an area where we can write in there personal comments. And most of our comments are foul marks, not fitting the stock correctly, things like that. So usually the first 10 areas in this critique sheet are part of the conformation or craftsmanship of the gun. And we have things like sights and nose cap and how they fit the wood, how things are done, side plates. And then once we get into the last part of the critique sheet, goes into the conformation of the gun. And that is the transition areas of the gun and the finish on it.
Fair enough.
So once we tally up all the scores, the 3 judges, Carl Landis, Matt Harshberger, and myself, Mike Carcella, we sit down on Sunday, and that's kind of our day where we start to give out the awards for the ribbons. We pick the first, second, and third place winners by comparison in their class. And then once we have the sheets all done, then we start for a second place ribbon, or a third place ribbon, or a first place ribbon for each of those categories. Put my glasses on so I can see it. So we give out awards for engraving, incised and raised carving, craftsmanship, conformation, and best of class, traditional or contemporary. We also give out a best of show if it warrants it. And this year we have a brand new award called the Rich Boyza Award. Now Rich was one of the original founders of the Gunmakers Fair and a judge. He passed away a few years ago, and since we had COVID, we haven't had a chance to really honor him, so we come up with a new award called the Rich Hoyes Award, and that is for the best representation and recreation of a Pennsylvania long rifle. And we have a little display down there with some of his work and a couple of his guns that he owned when he was a collector. And we have a special blue, navy blue, and white ribbon strictly in honor for him. If we have a firearm on the table today that was entered over the weekend and we feel that it represents what Rich thinks or thought, or something he would like to have picked up and said, hey, I really like this, that will win that award. We don't, as a consensus of 3 judges, we haven't come up with that winner yet, or we may not even have a winner this year.
Would you
have to do it next year?
So would you say that's kind of the equivalent of the Madison Grant for the?
It's very close to Madison Grant. Madison Grant was pretty much the same way. One of the original judges on the accoutrement side was back with Rich. Was Tom Ames. He was a very close friend of Madison Grant. And Madison Grant was very similar to the way Rich was. He liked simplicity things that spoke to him when you held it in your hand or you looked at it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the way Rich was. He was super knowledgeable on everything about long rifles, and educating and helping people who came to this fair in the beginning for the first almost 40 years, and then the new generation, the new home here, that we're going to continue to try to keep going. And with the crowd that we had this week on Friday and Saturday, and the guns we had entered, we had almost 40 rifles entered this year. I think it's going to be a huge success again next year because we're already talking about expanding.
Okay, great to hear.
Yep. So I know the facility, we've reserved this facility for 3 years. We can extend it. You know, it's just going to take a deposit, and we'll see what happens. But just from the crowds, I think there was close to 791 people on Friday, and over 1,000 or so more on Saturday, plus today. I know we're well over 2,000 attendees.
That's good.
To the show. We do have more vendors. We're going to have more vendors next year, and we're going to have a lot more seminars and things like that for people to enjoy. There's plenty of things around the Gunmakers Fair of Kempton to go see. There's plenty of hotels in like Hamburg and Leonhardtville and Fogelsville and even in Allentown. A lot of bed and breakfasts up here in the hills. Good restaurants. There's plenty of things for stuff to do and ladies to go see if they're not into guns and they want to come along with their significant other. Make sure you can come along. But there's plenty of stuff here for kids to do. One of the major things about this facility that was a little bit different in Dixon's is it's an accessibility for people in wheelchairs and scooter carts and walking.
That is very true.
Everything's all on one level here, pretty much. They can walk through. A lot of the stuff in the old location was intense. We're actually in full structures with lighting and hard floors, so we don't have to worry about weather, and everything's secure. And if we do get some inclement weather, we can all hide inside here until it passes. And then the Kempton Community Center here has been so warming and welcoming to us by their volunteers. They're all volunteers. They have food available for us here and drinks and stuff like that. So we didn't have to bring in food vendors. We have a lot of room outside to expand. We have plenty of handicap parking. We have plenty of parking for the vehicles. We actually had, yesterday we had to go in the overflow parking. So next year I think we're probably going to reserve more space because they've allowed us to kind of, being it's our first year, kind of allowed us to go in and do kind of an a la carte thing. Like we went to Midway, we went to 2 buildings, we went to concession stands, we went to bathrooms. First time to get a whole bunch of porta johns. It's much nicer to have actual inside flushable toilets versus, because a lot of women don't like those. This has really been a godsend for having this location. So we're glad to be here. We're glad to be, keeping this tradition going along. And there's a lot of people that hopefully you get a chance to interview who really need to be thanked and stuff like that. So, our major sponsors, which was the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, the Jacobsburg Historical Society, the Honorable Company of Coroners, PA Federation of Black Powder Shooters, which I'm a member of all of them.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that after 2.5 years, I get to see all of my friends, which I live in the western part of the state, so it's about a 4.5-hour drive. But I know a lot of people make 2-day trips to get here, and they spend 3 days here, and they have a heck of a time. And that's what it's about.
I mean, and that's, for me, I started coming to Dixon's when I was 12. So there's people I've now known for like 15 years that I miss talking to them, catching up on my projects. So that's the one thing I love about this show.
I was in my teens when I came, and I'm 53 now, so I've been
Wow.
for quite a long time. Yep. I was fortunate enough to enter rifles and powder horns and stuff like that for about 17 years. And then once I was asked to sit in with the old gun judges, the original guys, I sat in with them for about 4 or 5 years. And then they finally, as each one of them retired, they kind of said, all right, it's now your turn to come in. And I sat with the guys until almost everybody retired. Carl is one of the few from almost the original that's still here. Everybody else is still is retired. So we went from about 6 judges, we're down to about 3. I'd really like to have like one more judge. I haven't found that right person yet. But with Matt and Carl and myself, I think we have it pretty much taken care of. We did 40 rifles. We were able to critique them all in about a day. And if we get more than that, we're going to need more judges.
Yeah.
I really hope to have more guns in the future. I hope to get back. When I was entering, we were having almost over 100 rifles.
Wow.
I'd really like to get back to, in the 50s, 60s in the next 3 years. And I think we'll have it. I think we'll get it.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen the crowd today, over the past 3 days, has been a younger crowd.
Yeah.
And I really like that, because these guys are the future, and they're interested in it, and they're coming out. And I see a lot of people carrying wood out, and I see barrels and buying locks and stuff like that and parts. And I hope they go home in a year, build a rifle, bring it here for us to critique it and look it over, and have a good weekend.
I personally think the new critique sheet should help a lot, because that's the one thing with a horn that I liked is I'll enter one that I knew it wasn't 100% perfect, but I know, okay, I can have it looked at by expert eyes.
Yep.
And I know, okay, I can sit down next year and work on it. And I really do like that new critique sheet. So.
Yep. One of the things we got a lot of grief from is, like, I'll be the first to admit, we don't know everything. We've been stumped on some things and stuff like that. And after we've critiqued the gun or something like that, we put a notation on there that we'd like to meet the person who made that gun, so we could find out, what you were looking for and stuff like that. And was little things that we've seen on there. Was that something the original guys did? Because with the technology today, we bring a computer, we can kind of look up things and see different embellishment work that was put on a gun, but I don't know if it's 100% right. We see some mixtures of guns and stuff like that, so that's what's nice about the contemporary versus the traditional side.
Yeah.
We've actually changed guns, so we see something has like Berks County carving and engraving on it, but it doesn't has Lancaster style architecture or a patch box on it. Rather than hamper that person, as has been done in the past, we switch them over to contemporary.
Okay.
And that way they get more credit for it.
Yeah.
And then once our critique sheet's written and our personal notes are in there, they can go back and say, you know what, they were right on that. So the study of the process is most of the battle.
Yeah.
If you want to recreate something, you want to study the original makers and stuff like that to see how they did it. The original makers made mistakes also, but they also learned how to correct them. So you'll see some of their early work and their later work, and that's kind of how this is set up, with a first gun to apprentice, journeyman, and master. It's a learning process.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do it every year. Come to the Gunmakers Fair and enter stuff like they did at Dixon's, because it cost me. Back in the day, you could probably build a rifle for $400 or $500, but that was a lot of money back then too. Today, you're probably close to $1,000 in parts and material. So to do that every year is not feasible for everybody, especially in an economy that's a little bit stressed right now.
I remember when I was younger, I was selling all my friends' knives, and I was like, if I sell enough knives, I could come here and buy, could buy the parts.
When we were down today and yesterday, I had a chance to go around and just talk with all the vendors throughout the 3 buildings. Asked them how they did, how'd you do? And everybody was up. Everybody said, hey, we sold things, we got orders and stuff like that, and it's just been a success. So we try to get, they come from a long way. They got to stay in a hotel for 3 days. They got to lug all this stuff here. They actually had to pay for a table, so to recoup their original cost and what it costs for them to come here and make money is a positive, and that's what we really want. Yep. So what we'll do today now is we took all of these numbers from these critique sheets, we put them in the computer, excuse me, and we now have the total scores for each class. We're now, as the 3 judges, we're going to go find those guns we're going to compare them on a table to each other and award the different first, second, and thirds. And that's pretty much what we'll do. We'll spend most of the morning on Saturday doing that. And as consensus, we pick out, you know, best of traditional, best of contemporary in each class, and then we figure we have a best of show, or do we have a rich choice award. And if we don't all three agree, we won't give that special award out. We'll have to save it for next year. So it gives an incentive for them builders this year to go back, read the critique sheet, if they choose to, and build that rifle better and come back more knowledgeable and then win a ribbon. You know what I mean? But that's our plan. You know what I mean? That's the continue of the education of building a long rifle. So.
Well, thank you very much. That's very great. And
it's the first time we ever got interviewed, which was nice. We had a couple more write-ups in the papers, but it was pretty much, you know, a picture and he stood there. But it's nice to actually maybe convey some of our information out.